Chapter 70. If their roles were reversed, she would never break her own hand for someone else's life. But Officer Lee had done exactly that. At first, dislocate his wrist so he could easily slip out of the handcuffs. But he made a mistake. Tijo remembered when Officer Lee had saved Han Yimo from the harpoon, the situation had been equally urgent. Yet he hadn't faltered. Maybe this time, he really was panicking. When he struck his wrist with the wooden stick, he accidentally hit the handcuffs instead. That's how handcuffs work when pressure is applied from the outside. They only tighten. He knew that even if he shattered every bone in his hand, he wouldn't be able to free himself. As the water in the fish tank rose above Lawyer Sheng's neck, Officer Lee made a quick decision, abandoning his plan to break his hand. Instead, he turned to his forearm. This time, the force he used was greater, so much so that he nearly blacked out several times. Lawyer Zhang could only tilt her head back, desperately gasping for air at the surface of the water. Just as her consciousness began to fade, that man arrived. He first shut off the valve, then used the wooden stick to shatter the fish tank. Next, with only his left hand, he unwound the wire binding Lawyer Zhang. In just a minute or two, blood was already pouring uncontrollably from Officer Lee's fractured right arm. Zhang Chengze quickly snapped off a piece of wire and tied it tightly around his arm. Finally, the two of them escaped that dreadful place. Looking mournfully at Officer Lee's corpse, Lawyer Zhang said, as he said, he was a police officer, so he couldn't stand by and let someone die. No. Tizhao shook his head slowly. He might have been making up for a past mistake. A past mistake. The others looked at Tizhao, puzzled. What do you mean? Tizhao started to speak, but then swallowed his word. What Officer Lee had confided in him was not meant for others to know. Now that he was gone, the secret should be buried with him. Lin Ting removed her jacket and draped it over Lawyer Zhang. Lawyer Zhang, your clothes are soaked. Be careful not to catch a cold. Hu Zhao, feeling a bit out of place, fumbled for a moment before bringing over the aluminum pot and saying, "Hi, young lady, my condolences. Want some fruit?" Lawyer Zhang paused, surprised. Who is this? Mel. Just call me Old L, he said with a sheepish grin. They say, food is iron, meals are steel. Skip one and you'll feel weak. He's someone we met during the game. Lin Ting explained. Lawyer Zhang, you must be hungry, right? Tizhao brought this pot of meat especially for you. Me. Lawyer Zhang was indeed starving. Since she arrived here, it had been 2 whole days without food. She quickly grabbed the pot, taking large bites of the now cold, fatty meat. Seeing her drenched, disheveled, and devouring food so ravenously, no one would have guessed that she was once a proud, commanding lawyer. After swallowing several pieces, Lawyer Zhang mumbled, "Kezhao, thank you." Kezhao said nothing. A pot of meat was originally for Officer Lee. Now that he was gone, giving it to Lawyer Zhang made sense. At least she seemed more reliable than Xiao Ren and Drive. Xiao, Tizhao, I used to have my doubts about you, Lawyer Zhang continued. But not only did you bring us food, you brought Officer Lee cigarette. You're very thoughtful. She pointed to the cigarette still in Officer Lee's mouth. It took him a long time to find just 2 moldy cigarettes. Tizhao paused, deep in thought, before stepping forward and removing the cigarette from Officer Lee's mouth. Kaizhao had never seen this brand before. The cigarette but had 4 characters on it, Quartzite sinensis. When he brought it to his nose, he caught a rich, milky scent with a hint of herbal medicine. Yes, I brought these cigarettes, Tizhao said with a complex expression. Too bad Officer Lee didn't get to smoke it before he died. Lin Ting felt puzzled. She had been with Kaizhao nearly the entire time and couldn't remember him finding any cigarettes. Tizhao also picked up the metal lighter from Officer Lee's hand. I brought this lighter to give to him. Looks like I'll be the one using it now. No one objected. Though Lin Ting looked a bit confused, Tizhao stepped aside, closely examining the lighter and the cigarette. He had a nagging feeling that something wasn't right. Could this all be related to the bell? Thinking of this, he picked up the old cigarette box from the ground and carefully inspected it, but found no hidden mechanisms. What's wrong? Lin Ting walked over and asked softly. Is something off? Tisha frowned, unable to answer. How could he explain it to Lin Ting? That Officer Lee had pulled out a cigarette from an old pack, or that Officer Lee had taken a lighter from his own pocket. These seemingly mundane details shouldn't be perplexing, but for some reason, they were. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Tisha put the cigarette and lighter back into the box and turned around. How is Lawyer Xiang doing? She's calmed down. What do we do now? Tisha nodded. Our goal has always been the same, hasn't it? With that, he approached Lawyer Shang and said, Lawyer Shang, I'll be direct. Could I borrow a dao from you? Borrow? A dao? Lawyer Shang raised an eyebrow, puzzled. Yes. Tisha nodded. To be honest, our dao was burned. Now, we have none. Lawyer Shang lowered her head, lost in thought. Tisha, I'll give you all my dao, she said seriously. Let's team up. Tisha pressed his lips together. It's not that I don't want to team up, but being around me might be dangerous. He briefly recounted what happened to Ti Yao, GNT and Tian, then said, and being targeted. They'll kill those around me to stop me. Did you suffer any consequences when Kaiyao Jia Jinin TNT and I'd? Lawyer Zhang asked. Well, you weren't affected at all, Lawyer Shang said, which means threatening you by killing those around you won't work. In theory, yes. Then I'll be safe, she said, slowly, standing up. We'll make a deal. I'll give you all my dao and help you. But in return, you have to get me out of here.